Hi everyone, I know you guys have been asking for updates to like the primary, special, power weapon tier list, and those will be coming, but unfortunately I do have to retest a large portion of the sandbox. I'm getting base values for a lot of new weapons, new gear bonuses being baked into all the different weapons, exotics, etc. So I have to do a lot of retesting. In the meantime, I think Silken and Dabs the other day in chat, they asked me to test how much HP Galrun has, I think on normal for some solo stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I may as well test the HP of all the Pantheon bosses. So here we are today. All 7 Pantheon bosses from the Insurrection Prime version, Argos, War Priest, Galrun, Consecrated Callus, Morgeth, and Insurrection Prime. I tested them both on normal as well as with Cutthroat, and surprisingly, Cutthroat actually has different health. They have different health. So there are some activities where if you add Cutthroat as a modifier through like the feats area, you can actually see that the health is the same. The health is the same between normal and Cutthroat, but not for Pantheon. And it's not even like all the bosses have 10% less health or 20% less health. It's all different numbers. So today we're going to be going over that. There's some questions people had, for example, like if you have max force of will on Callus, what's your damage multiplier? Or like how much damage do you lose if you don't have phase synergy on Insurrection? So we're going to answer some of those questions today as well. And I'll give you some reference points to kind of understand how hard each boss is to kill. Now, if you're here just for the actual numbers, the numbers are on your screen right now. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and you can see Argos, 546k, War Priest 868k, etc., etc., etc. Here are all the numbers. Callus, of course, has an absolutely massive amount of health because he has the Force of Will multiplier. So it's kind of like Caretaker, where Caretaker, he has double the health listed on screen as he does effectively. So we do have this normal effective HP column over here, if you're curious about that. But we'll talk about, when I say like, oh, this boss is equivalent to this amount of HP, it's the same difficulty as killing this boss that you're more familiar with. We're going to be using the effective health value, so don't worry too much about that. But this is the actual health value in-game. If you were to wipe when he is 1 HP, this is how much you would see in total on the screen. Okay, so those of you that are curious about how this health value measurement actually goes, I made videos about this in the past, but I'll just give you a brief example right now, right? So if we go right now, we scroll down to like Pantheon Argos +0, right? You can take a look here. We have the amount of damage that I do on every single shot. I use weapons like Whisper, Sleeper, Parasite, weapons that do high damage per shot in single instances, single bursts, so I can identify individual chunks of the health bar going down. If I were to use a high fire rate weapon like Thunderlord or Microcosm or something like that, it would be much more difficult to track the health bar as it can only update so many times per second, right? So I use something that kind of shoots a little slowly but has more damage per shot, so it moves the health bar a bit more. And then I record using DDT, Destiny Damage Tracker, how much of the health bar is going down in percentage, and then I just convert it to like how much it's actually being dealt. And then I make a kind of linear approximation over here, and then I use a line of best fit calculation to approximate how much the health would be if it were, times 100 with that line of best fit equation. So that's kind of how that works. So for example, the clip that is associated with this specifically would be Argos normal. And then you can see here, if I zoom in, or actually I won't zoom in, you can see in the bottom, there's DDT right there. And, we shoot the crits and whatnot. And then I will start to do damage, and you'll see here that every time I shoot Whisper, the health goes down, goes down, goes down. And so I just manually input all of these numbers into the spreadsheet. I come up with this line of best fit, and then I plug in 100 for X, and then you see 546, 4, 2, 4. Okay, so that is how finding health bars works in D2, or finding actual health values works in D2. Let's go over some comparisons, okay? So Argos, how hard is Argos to kill on normal? Argos is approximately equivalent to killing the Witness including his final stand bar. I believe the Witness's health is a little different. Obviously, it's not 1-to-1, but it's basically the same difficulty, okay? So a big trend with a lot of these health values that I'm going to be talking about in this video is that you'll realize, wow, really? This boss is as hard as, another boss that, is maybe people have a reputation of assuming that boss is pretty hard to kill. Like maybe Epic Apoptes or Epic Corregos or something like that. Those are bosses people tend to think are pretty hard to kill, right? And a lot of these bosses, they, are just as hard to kill as those bosses, but it doesn't feel like that. And it's because of weapon and DPS power creep, right? Truth, Levy, A499, all the stuff we have right now is more overtuned than anything we've ever had, relatively speaking, at least, right? So a lot of these bosses, even though they're actually quite beefy, in reality, our damage sandbox is just so powerful right now. It's the most powerful it's ever been. I know going into Monument of Triumph, a lot of people were complaining that like, oh, Rocket Pulses got nerfed. Oh, such and such got nerfed. Lucky Pants got nerfed. And it seems like the damage meta overall got a nerf. But in reality, it is still as strong as it's ever been. There's like crazy stuff. And of course, Levy Mobius wasn't nerfed at all. And was the top option during Renegades, even though my spreadsheet didn't include it. I did kind of shove it in there toward the end. But the damage sandbox as a whole is still very, very powerful. Okay, so anyways, Argos is equivalent on normal to doing a normal witness with Final Stand. On Cutthroat, he has equivalent HP of 1.1 million, which is the same as normal Epic Corregos. So the amount of damage you need to do to kill Argos on Cutthroat is the same as normal Epic Corregos. Same difficulty, like same amount of shots, basically, from the same fire team. Okay? Now, obviously, normal Epic Corregos has a much longer phase than Argos, so Argos is going to be harder to kill on Cutthroat than normal Epic Corregos, but that's just the amount of health you actually have to get through. Okay? War Priest, this number right here, 868k, is approximately equal to normal Corregos with Final. Okay? And then Cutthroat, 1.6 mil effective, is equal to around half of Contest Corregos. So remember Contest with minus 40, OG DP with custom tuning. This is around half of Contest Corregos, which was like 3.3 mil or something. Okay? Galron is approximately equal to normal War Priest. So 494k, about equal to normal War Priest in King's Fall. And then on Cutthroat, 981k, this is about equivalent to doing a normal Epic Apoptes. Consecrated, 387k, is approximately equal to doing just a normal Herald with Final, I believe. So yeah, pretty straightforward. And then Cutthroat, Consecrated, is about equal to Contest Iatros, yes. So kind of makes sense, honestly. Both bosses are, bosses that are running around, they're Vex, and they have, I guess, no, Iatros has a longer damage phase, but, it seems like they're pretty similar bosses in my head. When I think about, how much damage it takes to kill them, they're pretty similar bosses. I suppose Iatros actually has damage resist against non-super, which would make him harder to kill, but he also has a longer phase. But they do seem similarly hard to kill, which makes sense if you look at these numbers. We have 3 bosses left. Callus, don't let this number fool you. The actual effective number is going to be 820k, which is approximately equal to, War Priest, right? War Priest and Pantheon, or normal Corregos with Final Stand included. And then this 1.1 number here is basically equal to normal Epic Corregos. Next, we have Morgith, Resplendent. Is that what his name is? I think that's what his name is. Morgith has a little less health than Callus. So 794k, you can see here. I believe Callus is equivalent to 820k, so just a little bit less than Callus. I couldn't really find another boss that was like normal from previous, pre-Pantheon that was equivalent to around this amount, so it's just similar to Callus, similar difficulty to Callus. Callus does not include his Final Stand or his shield health, by the way. And then also for his Cutthroat version, he has similar difficulty to killing Contest Epic Agraios. So if you did day 1 EDP, Contest Epic Agraios, similar difficulty killing that to killing Cutthroat Morgith. And then finally, Insurrection Prime, surprisingly, very little health. He is around the same as doing a Witness with Final. So just like Argos, similar to doing a Witness with Final. And then 930k effective or 931k effective contest health is about the same as a Contest Dredge and Seer. Although Dredge and Seer, obviously you have 3 people and it's a longer phase and there's no Radiance mechanics or whatever, but I don't know. I guess it's a reference point. Okay, so that is pretty much it. 2 more things, I'm going to cover before we finish this video. The first thing is Argos lost 8% health going from normal to Cutthroat. So I assume this is Bungie custom tuning because obviously there was going to be a community race and stuff. So maybe they were incentivized to custom tune some of these bosses. War Priest minus 15% health going to Cutthroat. Galron minus 11. Consecrated minus 19. It really feels like the boss phases that are short and more bursty and maybe a little bit more, annoying, they tune down more, right? And then you have Callus, which lost 37% health going from normal to Cutthroat, which honestly makes a lot of sense because a lot of teams were one phasing on Cutthroat, which is kind of surprising for, being a Cutthroat boss. But it makes sense when you consider that, yeah, he lost almost 40% of his health going from normal to Cutthroat. Morgith lost around 20%, so 19%. And then Insurrection Prime lost around 19%. That is the second last thing. And the last thing we need to talk about is the 2 modifiers I mentioned at the beginning. So Force of Will on Callus, if you have max stacks, which I believe is either 100 or 120. In the video I have 138 Force of Will. That is equivalent to a 16 times multiplier, right? So over here, I have divided by 16 to make it fair, to make it the effective health. But that's why he has so much health, 13 million, because he has a 16 times multiplier when you have max Force of Will stacks. And then Insurrection Prime, you can actually do damage if you are out of phase synergy. So if you are next to someone and you're tethered, or you don't have someone next to you who has the same buff, you will do 30% of your normal damage. So 0.3 times your normal damage you will do if you don't have phase synergy. Okay? That's pretty much it for this video. The next video is probably going to be about set bonuses. We're probably going to talk about that. I'll try to edit some testing footage on top of this video so it's not super boring to watch. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hang in there. I have a lot of testing to do. There's probably going to be a lot of videos coming down the line. And I'll try to do the set bonus one early because that one doesn't require other sandbox testing for the most part, just its own testing. But the primary ranking, the special ranking, archetype stuff, damage testing, all that requires a lot of circumstantial and environmental testing. So those are not going to be done anytime soon, or at least they won't be the next video, is what I'm saying. Okay, that's it for now. Bye-bye.